Simon, talk about your early years first. What was your life like, and where were you brought up, and school and sport, and then into singing? Tell us about that.
My dad was in the Navy, which explains why I was born in Bath, moved to Gibraltar, and ended up in Portsmouth for my young years. I guess my life was really summed up by, I've written it down so I don't forget, school, sport, soldiers and singing. There you go. Simon, 5 S's. Yeah, there we go. You've got the idea there. People often talk about revising when it comes to exam time. I could never revise because I'd never done the vising in the first place. And part of that was because I spent so much of my time at school in Portsmouth, either on the sports field, and I was pretty handy on both the rugby field and cricket. But also, being a naval town, we had a combined cadet force, and I was in the army part of that. And if you've got an hour or two spare afterwards, I'll tell you some of the tales of what we got up to there. Quite a few of which are not for public consumption, but there we are. So it's very much a sort of an outdoor active life, and the soldier thing actually was the first thing I thought, well, what shall I do as a career? A careers teacher came round to the school, and you answer all sorts of questions. They're stupid questions, because you can get the answer you want just by giving the answer, can't you?
You are talking to a teacher here, you know that.
I know I am. I know, that's what I'm looking at.
You remind me of some of my sixth formers. You know this creation doctrine?
Bolshevik sorts.
Yeah, creation doctrine of creation ex nihilo, something out of nothing. That's what they did every time they went into the exam, find something out of nothing.
Anyway, they said I should be a teacher. I didn't want to do that, so I thought I'd join the army instead. And I went to Westbury in Wiltshire, which is the regular commissions board, where they send people to see whether you're up to whether you're up to it or not. And I wanted to get a sort of an army cadetship to go to university. And they put you into little groups of 6. And it was the first time I'd been away by myself. I'd always been away from home, either with my parents or with people from school. And here was me, 16 years and something, and we're in little groups of 6. And the first person I saw was a person who I later discovered was literally twice my age. He was also about twice my height. He was a Coldstream guard and had been for about 15 years, and he was looking for an upgrade. And I really felt quite sort of intimidated by that. Suffice it to say, on the final day, you had to do an obstacle course. And no one had told me that when you go on an overhead rope over a bog, you don't go feet first. You go hands first, because you pull yourself along. You can't sort of push yourself along. I didn't know that. So when everyone else had finished, I was still hanging about a third of the way over this bog, and eventually thought, blow this, and fell into the bog. Unsurprisingly, they didn't accept me. But I wrote a piece for my school magazine about my adventures, and the irony was that when the army people came round to talk to people at the school, they read this because it was printed in the school magazine, and they asked if they could use that in the army recruitment literature, which they did for the next 5 years. So they didn't want me, but they quite liked what I wrote about it. As you probably gather, with a fair amount of humour involved, and there's a lot more stories behind that as well. I eventually got up to university, having failed my A-levels for reasons I've just explained, first time round. And when I was up, I came up to London, and about a few weeks in, actually, I sort of bumped into someone who's become my girlfriend for a while. And turns out she was Italian. And one evening she said, look, why don't you come up and meet my family? They live in Camden, up in North London. So up I went, and after large platefuls of pasta, the father sat down with a grand flourish and started playing and singing on their piano. And I joined in. And my previous singing experience had been largely limited to the back of the rugby coach coming back from away games. So you can imagine what we were singing there, but I could certainly make a lot of noise. And I joined in with some of these. I didn't really know the words, but I joined in anyway. This was after a glass or two, you might imagine. And he suddenly stopped and looked round. And he said, Simon, he says, you have a wonderful voice. Cut a long story short, I went and did 1 or 2 auditions and studied singing for the next 12 years. Very nearly made it as a professional into there, but I'd got a big sort of tenor type, Pavarotti type voice, let's call it that, which is very difficult to get under control. And I didn't get it sufficiently under control. There was a lot of people whose voices were maybe their gift was not as good, but their discipline actually to polish up and make that a usable instrument for the professional world was better. All of which points me towards the fact, shall I sing you a song?
Do sing me a song.
I'll sing you a song. I'll sing everyone a song. When you start out singing, and indeed just before you sing in any piece, you warm your voice up. And opera singing, which is what I was pursuing, is all about bel canto, which literally means beautiful singing in Italian. And what I'm going to sing for you is one of the songs that I used to warm my voice up with. And I want you to vote afterwards, not whether you like me singing it or whether you even like the song, but listen in to see whether I'm sustaining a really smooth and even line of sound. The words are pretty simple. Beloved woodlands, blessed shade, I come in search of my beloved, which I actually like because I love walking and actually spend quite a lot of time chatting to God when I'm out on my walk, so it means rather more to me than just those words. But I'm just going to pick my guitar up and I'll ask you to vote. 0, dreadful, 5, good. You up for that? At the end of the song, please.
So we're going to vote now.
Yeah, let's vote. You ask, I'm too embarrassed.
Right. Should we start at the bottom and work up? Does that sound like a good idea? Or should we start at the top and work down?
Be warned, I might walk out if everyone says naught.
Okay.
It doesn't bode well for the future.
How many people will give him top marks at 5? Anybody for 4? You've got some skilled technical
Would you like to
people
come
here.
and do it instead?
Anybody 3? 2, 1, 0. Well, you've probably got a verdict there, Simon, which can confirm your sense of self-worth. and really good. Okay,
That's just as well.
Continue the story. Where we got to in the story?
I'd failed to get into the army, and really a series of failures followed. I failed to do my A-levels first time round. Jumping forward a dozen years or so, I've explained there that actually I failed to make it into something I'd still love to have done. And it's not all the sort of standing up and being applauded and all that, which is great. The preparation of any creative piece, whether you're a painter, whether you're a dancer, whatever, the preparation is just a huge part of the joy of it. And I'd love to have done it, but it didn't work out. So there we go. Now, I was living up in Greenwich. And my parents, who used to be at this church here, they came to this church here. And when I decided to move down to save lots of money with them in my early 20s, I had no girlfriend in tow with me. And they said, by the way, I'd gone to church when I was young, but when the clock struck midnight at my 13th birthday, I was given freedom and decided that was not for me. But my brother was on my case. He was praying for me, and by the time we came to live here, actually, I was rather more open to these things. And my parents said, come along to St. Paul's. Lots of young people here. And it turns out there's about 150 people in their sort of 20s, early 30s. And on the first Sunday morning, this was in the old building, I went out the back afterwards for a cup of coffee, and a whole string of young people came up to chat to me. And they said, why don't you come away next week? We're going down to Ashburnham Place, which is down near Hastings, a good Christian centre, which some of you may well have been here. And so down I went. And the speaker that weekend actually was Martin Goldsmith, who is a very well-known missionary speaker. And I was down there looking for a girlfriend, but actually listening to him and that place in my journey, actually I found myself sort of saying yes to Jesus in a rather non-dramatic way whilst I was down there, as well as trying to introduce myself to lots of people. Anyway, on the Sunday afternoon, just before we were due to come home, a young lady walked up to me and said, hello. I said, hello. You must be about the only person I haven't spoken to here this weekend. At which point, said person thought, well, that's rather arrogant. And as said person walked away, I think I'm slightly twisting this, but it suits the story rather well. She thought to herself, I've got this strange feeling that I'm going to marry this guy. And Jill and I got married a few years later. And God and his sense of humour. The speaker was Martin Goldsmith. I went to Goldsmiths College up in London, now Goldsmiths University. The place where we were was Ashburnham Place. And where did I live in Greenwich up there? Ashburnham Place. So godness, you think of God as this sort of rather severe grey-haired chap with whatever sort of thing. I look upon him rather more as a sort of person sitting there in his trainers going, when us earthlings discover his plans for our lives. Where are we going with all this?
Well, you got more involved here, didn't you? And you were saying something about how you get involved here, and then let's talk about the fashion thing, because a lot of people want to hear about that. But let's complete the story so far.
Yeah, I got
your involvement here.
Within a week or so of then coming back, I had various people who are no longer at the church here who said, will you come and join a house group, as it was in that day? And then some said, come and be part of the beach mission up in South Wold. And I was welcomed in and invited to do stuff rather than to sit there, as it were. And from day one, I think, in my walk as a Christian, which really started then, there was no flashing moments, but around about them, actually being actively involved, particularly with kids, was something I really loved. And I was, I think I did that reason. And we went on, then, Jill and myself, to lead the Explorer group, which was, it's around, am I right? It was 95 explorers, that's 8 to 11-year-olds. This was back in the days where there wasn't much sport and things like that, and the groups were really huge in those days, and it was a real privilege to do that. So that's sort of kids, that's singing, that's school, that's sport, that's soldiering.
Did you have a job? I mean,
did I ever do a job?
Did work ever enter into your life thing or not?
Well, it entered into my life as a means of paying for singing lessons to try and pursue what I wanted to do. And I actually got a job working in an organisation which looked after all the clothing manufacturers in the UK. And so we could be here all evening, all afternoon talking about that. But suffice it to say that after a few years, when I realised that the singing thing wasn't going to work out, they sort of said, Simon, when are we going to have all of you? Because we only got part of you. Obviously, your heart is somewhere else. And I said, well, how about now? And that sort of coincided with when London Fashion Week was starting. This was in the middle of the 1980s. And because my sort of creative side and whatever, they thought that I'd be quite good to be the person who would sort of head up the liaison with all the fashion designers and show producers and model agencies and all the, the press and the buyers, all that sort of thing. And so that's what I became involved with. I worked for what then became the British Fashion Council for about 25 years, ending up as Chief Operating Officer. And how I got there and how I got away with it, I never know. When I retired back in 2016, I walked up the road from Somerset House where we were based, and I looked over my shoulder, quite literally, and I grinned and I said, I've got away with it. Because here are all these people who are trained designers and well-known people, great businessmen, and I was neither a businessman nor a fashion designer or anything like that. And yet, this sort of gob with his sense of humour clearly thought that actually this was something that I could do. And Ken, I always remember when I persuaded the church here to appoint a director of children's ministry for the first time. And it's when Jill and I were leading it. And we put together all these reasons why it would be a good idea and persuaded the PCC to go with it. And I applied for the post. And Ken, I'm not quite sure that it's quite ethical, but you were both my referee and on the selection panel.
It's the Church of England, Simon. Anything goes.
And they gave it to someone else. And I remember Ken came up to me afterwards and he said something along the lines of, you'll be disappointed by that, no doubt, Simon, but don't be despondent, because I think God's got much he wants to use you with in the big wider world. Do you remember saying that?
No. Yep.
There was no integrity to it whatsoever.
One of the interesting things is, and in your experience too, just as an aside, is the fact that people have come up to me, and I'm sure up to you, and have said, you did this, you did this, you did this. I have no recollection of that at all. Just to tell you, I was at a wedding in Holy Trinity, Brompton, a long time ago now, quite a few years ago now, with a young man and his new wife. He grew up in this church. His name was Nigel Scott. Remember Peter and Maria. And I said to his mother, just telling you this to encourage you and other people, I said to Maria, his mother, why have you been invited to this wedding at HTB, you see? And he said, well, Nigel particularly wanted you to come because you helped him at a time when apparently he was very discouraged and cheesed off with the church generally, which is not uncommon. And apparently I took him on one side and she said I sorted him out. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. And I want to encourage all of you as parents and so grandparents, we have no idea what God does with that. But you're very self-deprecating about this fashion business, aren't you, actually, Simon? Tell me, because we all want to know this, what drives the fashion industry? And why is it that image is so important?
It's driven by money, like most things. And the huge tension is what generates the money is creativity. And the people what makes the money and the people what are creative are from different planets. And therefore trying to encourage and provide the right platform and the right opportunities for all the creative people. When I say creative, I don't just mean designers. I mean pattern cutters, I mean window dressers in retail stores, I mean models, I mean show producers, a whole raft of people who are at the creative side. And then you've got a whole bunch of people who are trying to make money out of that. And there's a sort of permanent tension, or certainly was in my part of the world, between those. And I think that was something why I actually survived and thrived, because I had an experience of being a creative. I knew what it felt like to start, with a sketch for an outfit, which then became a toile, which is the basic working garment, and then the fabric, and then the fashion show, and whatever. There's a process there. I knew what that process was like from singing, where you research your work, you learn the words, you play on the piano and get the voice working, you then work with other people, with a chorus, with an audience, and so on and so forth. And I got that process. But also I got a fairly good head for figures. The whole soldiering thing, which is a lot of that was about discipline and about planning and whatever, I'd sort of had that from earlier on. And again, God in his wisdom, nothing's wasted. And I think I had that ability to, with one eye, see, it's a bit like spectacles on. With one eye, I could see the creatives and empathise with them, whilst everyone else was saying, "Oh, get rid of that idiot, will you? No, we need them." And on the other side, if it's not making money, it's not going to survive. So, in a sense, the whole of my career there was trying to act as a go-between and a balance between those two things. And I've sort of written about it in a book, which is sitting over there, The Character of Fashion. All I'm going to specifically talk about in a moment is identity, which is an important thing about fashion, but also about us as Christians and people of faith, identity. It's called The Character of Fashion, and it asks the basic question, if God was boss, how would he run this industry? A lot of people said to me, "Simon, what on earth are you doing in this world of fashion?" And I said, well, I'm being God's representative there. It's a great place. God's creative. These are creative people. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges wherever you work, and therefore it's a good place to be. And the book explores stories of Christians working there. It explores some of the big issues, and that's interviews with a whole range of people around the environment, around all sorts of things. And then it concludes with God's 10 commandments for fashion, as if he was boss, how would it be run? And what I'd love to do, I'd love to give you a free copy of that, which I'm really happy to sign. You're really welcome to have one for yourself, but what I'd also love, if you think there's someone you know who might be interested, will you take a copy for them, whether it's a neighbour, a friend, a daughter, a granddaughter, a son, a grandson, whatever. I don't want to take them back home again. They weigh a ton. They're a lovely book, even though I say it myself.
There's some good pictures in here. I've been looking at the pictures, actually.
I know. I'll put those in for you, Ken.
That's good, yeah. Do
you recognise your T-shirt in there?
No, I recognise this shirt here. I mean, that's just me all over. Look, there he is. Look, that could be me in a younger day. Look,
there's one or two other pictures in there as well.
Tell me, I have another question actually on this fashion business. Am I stereotyping this or not? But it seems to me that it's more about women than men. Now, am I right or wrong in my assumption? Because I see these glamorous models walking down the catwalk and so on. It reminds me of the day, you were talking about the old days, and nothing incidentally here is more responsible for the good old days than a bad memory. I'll tell you that now. When we were leading Pathfinders, similar size group, huge numbers here, as Simon's alluded to, we did a fashion show here one evening, one fundraising thing for Pathfinders. And we set up a catwalk across the hall here, and we all paraded. And I wore a fashion green ball gown and a blonde wig. And as we walked down in the darkness, in the corner, a boy, the parents were invited, a boy said in a very loud stage whisper, "That's my geography teacher." Back to the question.
Did anyone call the police for offences against fashion?
I don't know. Probably would now.
Women and men. Yeah, I think as a general rule, and I won't take a little stroll poll of how we're all dressed today, as a general rule, women are more interested in the way they look. Women as a general rule are more emotionally sensitive and expressive. Blokes, as a rule, and I say a rule because there's many, many exceptions, they tend to be more doers and get stuff done sort of thing. That's not suggesting that women don't get stuff done. Just look in our kitchens or the ironing boards or anything like that. And I'm delighted. One of the things I'm really privileged is I spent most of my working life working with women, and that's not a funny comment. I think there's still a huge amount of change that's needed, because I think blokes, lads, we're getting a bit sort of leaden-footed in the back here. The lightness of touch, the expressiveness, the interaction with people that women bring to the business place, not just the home, I think is something that, the world is missing out on. And we really need to work harder, try and make sure that women have got that full opportunity. And To come down to identity, I often say that fashion is a wonderful servant but a dreadful master. And if you look at some people wandering around, particularly at London Fashion Week, they're dressed up in bin liners and all sorts of other weird things, trying to create some sort of look to present themselves as something, which they're not. And they look ridiculous. There's no other way to describe it. And yet, if you know what colour suits you, if you know what shape suits you, and so on and so forth, what you wear can be a wonderful way to express the person you are. It doesn't mean it's more important than the real person inside, but it can express it. And particularly in the world, if you turn up for an interview and you look as if you've just been pulled through a hedge backwards, that is going to create a bad impression before you've even opened your mouth. And so the way we look isn't the most important thing about us, clearly, but it is a good way to engage with people, and it's fun. If you get home on a Friday evening after a tough week and you're going to pop out for the evening, whatever, to dress into something completely different from what you've been wearing all week, it changes your mood just like that. So clothes can be really, really great, but they can be a dreadful, dreadful master. And
Can I just interrupt? Can I take that slightly further? You remember, many of us will know the expression cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And in the modern retail world, that's corrupted to Tesco cogito sum. Tesco sum, I think, I shop, therefore I am. I wear, therefore I am. Just go a bit further on that. This question of people see their self-consciousness in what they wear.
Yeah, I mean, the world is a broken place and it's a hurting place. It's a world today, particularly in the West, I think, where the vast majority, dare I say, and I'm not sounding all grand about this, I think that's self-evident, they're barking up every wrong tree possible. They're defined by what they drive, they're defined by what they wear, they're defined by the holidays they go on, they're defined by the football team they support, or whatever. And no. And I'd love to sing another song in a moment, which is based on Psalm 139. Yeah, we're made in the image of God, each one of us. And that is a huge privilege, but also it's a lifelong exploration of what that actually means. And I'll be talking about radio presenting in a few minutes. And one of the questions I asked a couple of weeks ago to introduce the show was, can you just imagine you're looking in the mirror. You probably did this morning. Who do you see? Do you see a person who's, well, maybe a bit past it, their best years have gone? Do you see someone who is this or that or whatever? I can't remember exactly what I said. Or, if you're a Christian, and you probably are, if you're listening to this on Premier Christian Radio, do you see a princess? Do you see a son of the King of Kings? Because that's who you are. And I think it's a lifelong exploration to try to come to realize that the externals that contemporary society, and particularly advertising, tries to define us as, it's a lie, full stop, it's a complete lie. And, whether you're large or thin, whether you're good looking or not so good looking, to be frank, whatever you're wearing, whether your life has been in your eyes a complete failure or a great success, it doesn't make any difference. Once you accept Jesus, you are a son of the King of Kings. You're a daughter of our Heavenly Father. And we need to practice that because the world will always drag us back to those parameters of Psalm 139 talks about.
Tell us about your Psalms, because you've got great inspiration from the Psalms and you've done quite a lot of work.
What time's lunch? Is it 2:30? No, sorry. In 2012, Jill and I went to Holy Island. And it's a lovely day, but we didn't see any angels or anything like that. And in the evening, we popped into the local shop, and Jill was buying some cards to send home, I think. And I spotted a book called ABC. And the ABC was the saints Aidan, Bede, and Cuthbert, who set up the monastic community, which is why it's now called Holy Island. And I bought it, took it home. And those saints, back in the 4th, 5th century, they used to go around the north of England into Scotland, healing the sick, raising the dead, doing all sorts of things, as one does. But as they went, they used to recite the Psalms to each other, all of them. and there's 150 of them. And I sort of thought, well, this is pretty cool. If by memorizing and knowing the Psalms, you can go around sort of, raising the dead and healing the sick and whatever, I'll have some of that. It might make some difference to the effect I have in my workplace. And so I set myself a target to memorize 15 Psalms, and I did it on my bike ride up to London and back every day. And so you'd have this scene at the sort of the crossroads at Tooting Beck, where Simon on his racing bike, dressed in his lycra with others sitting alongside of him, pulling a little piece of paper out of his back pocket, having a quick look, and then reciting whichever psalm he was trying to recite as he was cycling. Anyway, I memorized all 15. I wrote a book about them called Riding the Tide, which I don't have with me today. And I also wrote songs to each one of them. And they basically explore how the Psalms, written 3,000 years ago, are completely relevant to everyday life today. The sort of challenges faced then are the same challenges we face today. And I love the Psalms, and I think a great many people do. The one I'm about to sing to you was not one of those. So no one here has ever heard this one before. It's written to a well-known part of Psalm 139. It talks about identity, which is why I'd like to sing it in the context of what we've just been talking about. So here we go.
Where can I go from your spirit? You've searched me, Lord, and you know me. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. Make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, you are there. You created me, my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. In the secret place, I was not hidden. You saw my body, ordained all my days. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I praise you, your thoughts are precious to me. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I praise you, for your works are wonderful. I praise you, for your works are wonderful.
Simon, Simon, on my brief here, it says retirement, season of mellow fruitfulness. So what have you been involved with since you left the world of fashion?
I said when I walked out of Somerset House on the day I retired, and I retired a little bit early because I could, I looked over my shoulder and said, I got away with it. But as I was then walking on towards Charing Cross tube station, this sense came, what am I going to be doing? And I was actually writing this book at the time, so I wasn't short of things to do. But I wondered what God had got in charge, because all the things I'd wanted to do hadn't happened. Yeah, soldering didn't happen. The singing didn't happen, not in the way I'd wanted it to anyway. Children's minister here hadn't happened. And I'd ended up doing this job which I'd never really wanted to do. Yeah, people say, oh, yeah, why did you choose fashion? I didn't choose fashion, it chose me, I think. And so here I was sort of with a blank sheet of paper, and I said, well, I'm not going to apply for anything. I'm going to let God send my way whatever he wants to. And there's a favourite little thing that goes, God's not interested in the able, he's interested in the available. And so I thought, okay, I'm here, I'm available. And I'd got this crazy plan about taking the character of fashion as a roadshow around the cathedrals around the country. Really as an outreach tool, because women in particular are really interested in fashion. I knew from various conversations when I was writing the book that people found it really intriguing, even though they were atheists or whatever. And so we got some conversations going with cathedrals, and they really liked the idea as an outreach vehicle. And the chief executive of the British Fashion Council coming to town, who would not want to go and talk to them? And I talked to Premier Christian Radio as a possible partner to work with me on it. And it's a slightly longer story. At the top and bottom, and said, yeah, we'd love to do that. Fortunately, the whole thing didn't work out because the cathedrals, I think, bless them, were going to be a real nightmare to try to work with. But Peter Kerridge, who sadly died just a few weeks ago, who I've been talking to, he said, Simon, we've got a large female listenership. Why don't you do a series on fashion for us? So I thought, that sounds interesting. And so I did a series called The Heart of Fashion, which they obviously liked, because when that was about halfway through its run, they said, Simon, the presenter of our Sunday morning show, Worship at Home, which is our biggest live event show, sadly died in the summer. And we've been filling the gap with various people since. Would you consider taking that on? And that's quite a big ask. It's a big ask in terms of my involvement here at St Paul's, because this was on a Sunday morning from 10 till 1. It was a big ask for Jill. Here we were going into retirement and Simon potentially taking up a job. Anyway, so I started doing that, and that was 5.5 years ago. I think I'm about program number 250 now, and it's something I just love doing. I particularly love interviewing people. I have a guest each week called My Faith at Work. The person's story, faith, their faith journey at work, how that faith plays out in their day-to-day. And guests have ranged from the supposedly great and mighty, like archbishops and cabinet ministers, rocket scientists, literally, through to someone who's just bereaved, or someone who's just got off alcoholism. A converted Hindu monk was one a couple of weeks ago, or this week. The one before that was an expert in Christian mindfulness. And it's actually a real privilege to be able to talk to all these different people.
You mentioned the created universe. I'm a geographer. Like John Wesley, the world is my parish. We got a song about that.
Yeah, this is your chance to join in. Sorry. 3-4 months ago, Clive asked me if I'd sing for Midweek Focus here, some of the old-time songs. I didn't know any. I thought, being me, I said, I'll give it a go. And I started putting a few together, and I had such a ball putting them all together. And there were songs from about, 70, 75 years, from the late 19th century to the 1960s. And so we sang them, and everyone had a ball. One or two people were there, and I think you were smiling at me. And I was chatting to one of my guests who runs a large older people group down in Surrey, or further across in Surrey, and they said, will you come here? Because I just described what had been going on literally the day before. And so I went down there last month, and there's about 150 older people with dementia, people who were sort of past it, they all thought, and we had a sing-along of some of these wonderful songs. I then shared something of my story, something about identity. And just looking out across them, I said, I don't know how you see yourselves, but as I'm looking out, I'm seeing a mighty army. I'm seeing a mighty army of people who've got huge life experience and can encourage not just each other, not just friends and family, but the younger people who are part of your communities. I also see a group of people who can be prayer warriors, and prayer isn't about the work, prayer is the work. So if you think you ain't got much to offer, can I challenge you to think again? One of the songs I introduced there, which I didn't do at Midweek Focus, is What a Wonderful World. Do you know it? Yeah. Shall we sing it now? And it's something I'd love to do. God sends things our way. I'd love to go around a lot of the churches, the groupings, whatever, around this part of the world, and just draw people together, because singing is such a wonderful thing. Anyway, do you want to stand up for this, or do you want to stay where you're seated? Whichever you want to do.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
Brilliant, Simon. Stay there. Because we're running out of time, and just to bring it all up to date, you're here now as church warden. It must be the only church in the country that's got a brother-in-law, two brothers-in-law as wardens, effectively. You didn't realise that, did you? Okay.
It's our wives who are sisters. We're not.
Yeah. Few comments about now at St Paul's, and then we got a song to finish to sing with. Okay, right.
Yeah, when I was appointed, I got away with it for 40 years without being appointed church warden, but there you go, we've been in the PCC. Someone came up to me and said, so what do you see your role's all about? And yeah, obviously, it's about trying to ensure that the running of the church is done well. Yeah, church warden, yeah, a warden, yeah. And it's obviously about supporting the ministry staff, you know, the Vicar, Nico, and the rest of the team here. And it's also about acting as a conduit between the congregation. So if you've got anything you're not happy with, or something you really like, or whatever it is, I just want to chat. Yeah, in a sense, the two church wardens are the senior lay representatives in the church, and therefore you're also given a whistle. And you're the only people in the church wardens, who are actually legally, under church law, allowed to kick people off the premises. I'm just waiting for the day when I can blow my whistle about 25 minutes into the sermon and say, okay, you're out. But, what I actually said to the person who asked me was this. Actually, I think the most important thing about me being a church warden is intimacy with Jesus. And I'd said it before I'd really thought about it. And I've been working out for the last few weeks, what does that mean in the context of being church warden? There's a clue up here above me, the sort of church motto, as it were. We sort of try our best to do what Jesus did. You know, we do good works and all that sort of stuff. Becoming like Jesus, well, you know, our character and all that, you know, we're all a work in progress, but hopefully we're improving. Being with Jesus is something that I reckon most of us struggle with. You know, it's sort of the Mary and Martha thing, where we're all been a bit busy, to just sit and listen. When was the last time you spoke to Jesus? What did he say? Did you leave him any space for him to say something? Have you got used to chatting with him? And I don't know whether it's been a bit sort of clever or grandiose, the creative side of me, but I'd love to think when I get kicked out, my whistle is taken off of me, the way I've done this role, the way I've challenged people, talked with people, the way I've everything, will actually point them towards being with Jesus, because that's at the heart of what we do here. One of the people I interviewed recently, they said, we're made to be loved by God. Not to love God, which obviously is true, but we're made to be loved by God. And to do that, we've got to allow God in. And I'd love to explore, even with such an exalted title as Church Warden, but it's a privileged position, to try and help people in the way we do things and so on and so forth, to do that. Anyway, we're going to finish.
Yes, we're going to finish the song, and the song many of us will know. Okay, it's called 10,000 Reasons. Okay, would you like to stand if you're able this time? And we'll celebrate Simon's story, the faith he testifies to, and the faith that we ourselves can share.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship your holy name. You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great, but your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship your holy name. Yes, I'll worship your holy name. Yes, I'll worship your holy name.